Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Hari Bol. Is it a little bit louder? Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yashodanandana Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Yashodanandana Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Radhika Ramana Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radhika Ramana Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Govinda Jiu Ki Jai Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiu Ki Jai Jai Shri Giriraj Govardhana Ki Jai Nitai Gauranga Ki Jai Nrsinga Bhagavan Ki Jai Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshava Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srila Gorki Sharadas Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhaum Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Vatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Vatta Das Raghunath Shata Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Srila Swarup Damodar Roy Ramanandadi Gaur Parsada Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Dvadashavanatmaka Shri Braj Mandala Dhama Ki Jai Radha Kunda Shyama Kunda Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Giriraj Govardhana Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Bhakti Vigna Vinashana Shri Nrsinga Dev Ki Jai Bhakta Prabhu Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai Charodam Charo Sampradaya Charo Acharya Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gaur Premanandi Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Trise Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Brindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Go Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashto Tarashata Sri Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. And then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj. I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Sri Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga, and my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. We're continuing now with Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary on Sri Upadeshamrita. And we're getting close to the end of his 12 essays. We're on the 12th one now. It's a little bit extended, actually, to our good fortune. We have considerable amount left just in this one essay. And what is the 12th item in the Upadeshamrita, third shloka?
Following the footsteps of the sadhus?
Yes, what's it called? Huh? Satovrite, and then sadhuvriti. To follow the behavior and the standards that are given by the great pure devotees. This is what we're trying to do in our life. Although we're not pure devotees. No, not yet. But it will take a little time. Actually, we heard a very encouraging analogy given by our Srila Prabhupada in the early days. And he said that every devotee, whether they're a newer devotee, older devotee, they're all like mangoes. Devotees are like mangoes. And you know that the mango, when it grows on the tree, it comes out and it looks like a mango, but it's hard and green, right? If you pick it when it's hard and green, you can still utilize it to make what?
Chutney.
Green mango chutney. You can also make pickle, mango pickle, and so forth. So it is a mango. It has value. But it cannot compare to when that mango ripens on the tree, especially in South India, during the mango season. There's no comparison on the surface of the earth. That's why it's called the king of fruits, right? So every devotee will gradually become a ripe mango. You can envision this for yourselves. What happens? What happens? Describe the transformation from the green to the ripe mango. What takes place?
It becomes sweet and juicy.
Sweet and juicy.
Softer.
Softer.
Redder on the outside, like a...
Depends on the type of mango.
Yellow. Or
Some are yellow.
yeah.
Yes. What else?
Bigger?
A little bit, yeah. It depends how small the green mango was. It still has to get big enough. But yeah, we're like little small green mangoes.
What about before that, like as a flower? A mango flower.
Mango flowers.
Well, in this example,
Right.
They're not used because that's like when you're in the womb or something.
More fragrant.
Huh?
More fragrant.
Fragrant. Exactly. I'm going to tell you a mango story. The first time that I went to Malaysia was in 1995. And we were meeting the Gaur Govinda Maharaj disciples there who had been there for a few years. It was Pran Kishore and his wife and daughter, Kishore. And we were staying in one hotel, just as we're getting started. And our attempt was that we were going to be able to make some money so that we could be with Gurudev. This is before Gurudev started traveling, because he didn't start till 96. But we came there in 1995, and I was the guinea pig. I came before and tested out the waters. But the Gaur Govinda Maharaj disciples, they had been there, and I had met them in LA. And it's a whole story of how we both decided that we wanted to go and live closer to where Gurudev is, because he wasn't traveling. There was no sign that he would ever travel, right? So we were there with Gurudev in Vrindavan during Kartik and so forth, 94, 95. 95 was when ISKCON had separated. So, yeah, so anyway, it was nice because it's a tropical country, nice warm weather, very lush green, excellent fruits. But we were staying in this hotel in an area called Masjid India. It was like Little India because all the shops were Indian shops in that area, even though it's a Muslim country, but there were all these Indian shops selling Indian cloth, and just like in India. But what they did one day, I noticed that just on the corner of where our hotel was, they started to stack all these boxes on the corner. And they were boxes of mangoes. They were from South India. It was the peak of the mango season, right? And I had been in India many times. I had purchased mangoes over the years. They're so good. So I purchased a couple of mangoes from the box. I went up to my room, and then I washed them, and I cut them, and all of a sudden this fragrance completely permeated the entire room. I never experienced anything like that since that time. So amazing, amazing. Then I offered it and tasted the mango. Then I realized, oh yes, king of fruits. So, anyway, how will we become a ripe mango? How will we become a pure devotee? Well, it's a little different than just hanging on the tree. You have to do a little bit more than that. That's where the analogy changes a bit, right? You can't just hang around on the tree, because so many things can happen even if you're hanging on the tree. A bird can come and it can bite the stem and it falls to the ground or whatever, like that. So we have to act to become ripe mangoes, pure devotees. This is the system given by the previous acharyas, sadhu vritti. We should act in the way that they have shown by their own example. Of course, we cannot imitate. No, not possible. We cannot imitate. There's two different words in Sanskrit. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj was pointing out, one word is anukarana and the other is anusarana. So anukarana means that you're imitating what a great personality is doing. You're trying to imitate them. But anusarana means to take the essence of their example as well as their instructions and follow that, apply that in your life. So this is what the Upadeshamrita is about. It is about anusarana, and always adhering to that. If somebody will not adhere to that standard of applying in their own spiritual lives, this last sato vritti, sadhu vritti, they will fail. Actually, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has shown that for all of these 12 items, the 6 qualities which should be avoided and the 6 qualities which should be developed, if one doesn't follow them properly, there's very great danger for one's bhakti. Didn't we hear that a number of times as we've been reading through this? So many times. Warning, 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 warning. Right? So, we just simply have to understand that we're fully dependent. We're fully dependent on the instructions given by the higher authorities. If we start to concoct, and that's the tendency of the conditioned soul, and we start to concoct, well, I don't really have to do like that, I can do like this. Then as our mind begins to go in that direction, then what eventually happens, it becomes a new philosophy. That's called an Apa Sampradaya, right? It's nice that the word Apa is there, because you can connect that to the English word opposite, or opposed, you see. So it will always continue to go on in this material world, because it went on during the time just after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Different persons began to deviate. Then it went on in the recent times, like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, it was deviating so much. Like the whole story of Baladev Vijayabhushan having to go to Galta in Jaipur, right? And to defend the whole position of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, because they were starting to reject the Gaudiya as not being a bona fide Sampradaya, right? And he, incredibly, he wrote an entire commentary in like 1 week of the Vedanta Sutra to show that this is not a new Sampradaya. This is a branch coming down in the Madhva Acharya Sampradaya, but because of the speciality of being the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they were saying, oh, they're an offshoot, they're not the actual branch, you see. But he proved it. And Govindaji, and especially Rupa Goswami's Govindaji in Jaipur, actually wrote that. That's why it's called the Govinda Bhashya Commentary. And Baladev Vijayabhushan manifested it. But actually, it was coming from Govindaji himself. You see, so, but in the modern day, there were so many Apasampradayas were there during the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He noticed there were 13 different Apasampradayas that had deviated from the line, but yet were claiming to be followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Aul, Baul, Karta, Bhaja, Saki Beki, and Gauranga Nagari, they all had their own characteristics of how they were manipulating and mutating the philosophy of Mahaprabhu. And it came to such an extent that the whole, intelligentsia of that time, intellectuals, scholars, sophisticated people, they rejected the Gaudiyas. Oh, they're just low-class people. Because they were all not living properly according to, proper Vaishnava etiquette, religious behavior and so forth, and doing all debauch activities. Intoxication, illicit sex, everything going on like that, in the name of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, then at the time of Param Gurudev, he counted 32 different types of Apasampradayas. And in our time, here in the West, there have also been various different mutations of the philosophy done by different devotees, like falling from the spiritual world. That's an entire Apasampradaya. That the jiva fell from the spiritual world. That's such a basic and essential tattva to understand. Yet, the entire society, after Prabhupada left the planet, they began to embrace that as being the actual Siddhanta. That's why we were talking last night, how Gaura Govinda Maharaj could not tolerate that, and he left the planet because of that. So, those who become a little bit mature, and actually it depends on a person's honesty and sincerity. That's what's required. Simple heart. Srila Prabhupada used to say, Krishna consciousness is simple for the... Yes. And difficult for the crooked. So that's why our acharyas have manifested Upadeshamrita, and then Raghunath Das Goswami manifested what? Manasiksha. If you want to go on that pathway, then it's very fine lines, because most of the deviation is internal, not external. Some of it is external also, but as it goes deeper and more subtle to the point of pratishta asha, that's the most difficult. We were walking with Srila Gurudev actually it was his first morning walk in Los Angeles after he had arrived in 1996, and he went down to Fullerton. And we stayed there one whole week with Gurudev. That was the beginning of his preaching on the West Coast. He was coming from Holland, England, and then Houston. So I remember that morning walk, because it's the first morning walk I went on with Gurudev in the West. And I didn't quite know what Gurudev, how he conducted his morning walk, because, we know that Srila Prabhupada used to talk. He would walk, and sometimes as he's walking, he would be talking, and then he would stop, and devotees would come around. So Gurudev's pastimes hadn't manifested yet in the West of his going on morning walks, right? And we had been with him on parikrama and so forth. So anyway, Gurudev, there was just a few of us, and we were walking a few blocks away to where there was a park. And so along the way, I kind of mentioned something to Gurudev as we were walking. But, Gurudev always has his hand in his japamala, and he's absorbed, right? So later on, everyone understood, you don't talk to Gurudev as he's walking. But if he stops, like here in Badger, then everybody crams around him. I think there must have been sometimes 150 male-bodied devotees. There was a couple times when a few ladies snuck in. There you go. But all the ladies would wait here, and then they would be lavished, wasn't it? By Gurudev's affection. We didn't get the lavishment. You all got that. Yeah. Forgot the point I was making now. I'm going off on a tangent. Oh yes. So the first time on his morning walk in LA, I just maybe asked Gurudev something, and he just kind of answered briefly and kept walking. So at that point I could understand, oh, okay. So then Gurudev came into the park, and he sat down on a park bench, and we sat in front of him. And I remember this was the first thing that he mentioned from the Manasiksha. This point about pratishtasha, the desire for pratishta. He didn't get into so much detail of telling the full translation of the verse, but the point that he wanted to make was, actually, it is impossible for a jiva to overcome that subtle tendency. When he said that, I remembered Srila Bhakti Rakshak Maharaj also explaining with different wording. He said that the desire for sense gratification and deviation from principles and so forth, sinful. He said that is a very weak enemy, he said. It's an enemy, but a very weak enemy. Can be defeated quite easily. And we had seen that all over the world. Srila Prabhupada's movement, so many persons coming, giving up what they had been accustomed to their whole lives, and now following a pure lifestyle, right? So he said, that's, they're a weak enemy. But then he said, there's a very formidable enemy that is very difficult to conquer over. And what is that? What is Pratishta Asha? What is it?
The desire for name and fame.
Okay. Anything else in that? Name, fame,
The desire for
Admiration.
prestige.
Pride. Recognition.
Yes, pride. Then Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, pride is the greatest enemy. Greatest enemy. Before one can enter into the realm of Raga Nuga, where one is absorbed 24 hours daily in that Rag Marg Bhakti Bhajan pathway, this will have to be eradicated from the heart. But how will that happen? The conditioned soul is not capable. So Gurudev was telling, this is not possible. But Raghunath Das Goswami, he's telling how it becomes possible. Sada se vasva tvam prabhudayata samantam atulam. Here, he is telling, Sada se vasva. He's talking to his mind. O mind, always serve the great Mahabhagavad generals. He uses the word samantam. That means generals, like in an army you have Bhishma and Drona, and the generals of Sri Krishna's army, who are the great Mahabhagavats. And who are they? Sri Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, all of our Guru Varga coming down. These are the generals. Only way that will leave one's heart, that's subtle, is by service to them, complete, absolute, surrendered service to them, and they will expel this dog-eating outcast Chandali woman who's audaciously dancing in your heart in the form of Pratishta. So in the beginning to practice bhakti, this is not emphasized so much, because let the devotee come into the line and now begin to develop this attraction for the processes of bhakti in their life. But that challenge is coming for everyone. And unless someone is under the guidance in Anugatya of the great Vaishnavas, that subtle desire will be impossible to defeat for the conditioned soul. So, the Upadeshamrita is our guidebook. And especially these lectures from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because the purports or the commentaries in Gurudev's small Upadeshamrita are quite brief and short. But these lectures or essays from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur are very extensive. And when you read them, I would have to read this many times to be able to actually commit it to memory and assimilate it. Just like today, Manjari was saying, what was that point that was being made? Those two different characteristics, what were you asking?
How do you nurture the subtle body?
Yes.
Saying that we have
How do you make the subtle body favorable and the gross body
The
favorable?
word was
What was the
vritti.
term?
The word was vritti.
Yes.
And righteous moral conduct.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
I'm reading that paragraph again. Oh wait. That's a minute.
I was trying to explain what I heard, and I realized I was stumbling.
The regulation to make the mind and the body favorable for bhajan, in that subsection here. the regulation to make the mind and the body favorable for bhajan. The conclusion of all these principles of Srimad Bhagavatam is that Hari Bhajan is the only objective for the people of this world. That's the conclusion. It's the only objective for the jivas. However, it is impossible to engage in bhajan until the gross and subtle bodies have been made favorable for that. Is it impossible for someone to chant the holy names? No. Anyone can chant. This is Mahaprabhu's movement. Chanting, dancing, taking prasadam. Very simple process. It will purify. But here it's talking about to engage in bhajan, which is our only business, actually. How can we become qualified? How can our body, our gross physical body and our subtle body become favorable so that we now can engage in bhajan? Otherwise, it's impossible. He says here, however, it is impossible to engage in bhajan until the gross and the subtle bodies have been made favorable for that. Therefore, the foremost duty of human beings is to make these two external bodies favorable for bhajan. To maintain the gross body, now he's talking about the gross body. To maintain the gross body, it is necessary to accumulate such things as a house, grains, water, and so on. For the subtle body to prosper, and this was your question, for the subtle body to prosper, first thing is true knowledge. Sad vidya. Sad vidya, true knowledge. And the second thing, sad vritti, a righteous mode of conduct. Conduct means behavior. These are needed. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Shishi Radha Govinda Ki Jai.
Vidya and Gyan are the same? Is there a difference between them?
No, this is different. Sad Vidya, true knowledge. Or you could even say knowledge of truth. What is that called? Tattva, Tattva Gyan, Tattva Siddhanta. There's that, we were talking about those 5 verses that Gurudev would call on me to tell. So let's see. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalo bhadayaschaye chaita etairana vidham stitam sattve prasidati evam prasanna manaso bhagavat bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Bhagavat tattva vijnanam. Gurudev would always talk about this. Tattva gyan. Tattva gya rasik vaishnava. Tattva gya, someone who knows tattva. Krishna also tells one who is a tattvadarshi in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where a very well-known verse about the necessity of Sri Guru. Krishna is telling. How does that begin? Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. So he's saying that you must go to someone who is a tattvadarshi, means a seer of tattva. They've realized. They don't see the world like the ordinary conditioned souls do, because the ordinary conditioned souls see the world through the purview of their very cluttered and impure mental body. That's why he's saying the subtle body has to be made favorable. And that will come from sadvidya. So it's essential to hear. This is one thing that I see that devotees lack a lot, is the understanding of the importance of being absorbed in transcendental knowledge. that is a very, very major part of our moving forward. Those who have made some progress, they've also developed an awareness of how essential this is for them. To be hearing, to be in the association of Vaishnavas, hearing the Shastras, and also studying on their own. This is such a major, major part. But so many devotees, they fall into a condition of not paying proper attention to that, you know. That's why Gurudev would say, don't be weak. Because that's how you become weak, when you're not hearing. And we talked the other day about Rupa Goswami Mahaprabhu doing Shravanam Kirtanam Jale for the Bhakti Lata beach, giving the water of Shravanam and Kirtanam. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, for the subtle body to prosper, true knowledge, sadvidya, and a righteous mode of conduct, sadvriti, are needed. So, why is this important? A righteous mode of conduct. Because even if you're hearing Hari Katha, but you're not acting, you're not applying it in your life, you're not developing a righteous mode of conduct, what will happen? The subtle body will become contaminated and with material desires and so forth, and one will fall. So both are required. In the bhajan life, he's saying, main object of the human form of life, to do bhajan. But we'll not be able to do it unless one follows these principles. And for the gross body, the various things that are needed to maintain it. So Prabhupada used to say, even in regards to eating, he would say you should take as much as is required to do what?
Keep body and soul together.
Yes. Keep body and soul together. I thought that was quite a unique way of expression when I was a newer devotee. Should eat enough to keep your body and soul together. That means you don't die. Your soul doesn't leave your body and go to the next body, right? So that's the objective of the pure Vaishnavas. And that's why we see, I mean, just look. Look at the lives of our Sad Goswamis, 6 Goswamis. They're showing the extreme degree. Okay, we cannot imitate that. And none of our acharyas tell us to. But if and when a soul would become so fortunate to actually come to that level and doing this Braj Bhajam in extreme separation mood as the Goswamis were doing, they're actually showing the example for all future generations of Vaishnavas. Wandering everywhere in Braj. Really seriously absorbed in extreme separation moods. He Radhe Vrajadevike Chalalite He Nanda Sunokuta Shri Govardhana Kalpa Pada Patale Kalindi Vane Kudaha Gosantav iti sarvato Vrajapure Ke Dair Mahavivalo. They're crying out like this. In what? Mahavivalo. Extreme agitation of praying. They were completely absorbed in separation mood, weeping, crying, falling on the ground. This is their bhajan. We cannot imitate that. But we have to make our gross and our subtle bodies favorable so that one day these moods will arise in our heart. But they're showing us that in that stage, there will be such absolute neglect of any of the bodily needs, even eating and sleeping. So, but if somebody tries to act like that, immediately they'll fall down. They cannot do that day after day after day. Only going with 1.5 hours of sleep. Only drinking, like Raghunath Das Goswami, what was the thing that he was taking? Chach, buttermilk. And even when the particular leaf cup was brought to him with the buttermilk in it, he asked the person, where did you get this? shape of a leaf? He said, oh, I got it from Sakhi Stali. Immediately he threw it away. Because what is Sakhi Stali? It is the place of Chandravali. And his mood of Radha Dasyam was so deep that he would not even accept anything from there. You see? And that's all he was living on. And he threw it. So, we have to understand that this Krishna Prema is not a cheap thing. And I remember that Gurudev also said this. You know, there's so many different statements that Gurudev told, especially in the first few years, that stuck in my mind all the way through till now. And I remember he said that actually, in order to attain this Gaur Prem, what Mahaprabhu has come to give, when we say Gaur Premanande, right? This ecstatic prem that Mahaprabhu has come to bring. He said, in order to attain that, each one of you, one day, in some lifetime, you will have to do the bhajan of Raghunath Das Goswami. So prepare for that. You should all be thinking, like, I'm going in that direction. Yes, I'm in a lady's body now and I have kids and I'm doing the Varnashram in all of this. But actually, I'm going there. And Gurudev told us that it won't be long. If you're very serious and sincere in this lifetime, maybe 1 or 2 lifetimes, he said. He said, even in your next life, you cannot imagine what Krishna will arrange for you. What kind of birth, what kind of samskaras in that birth, what kind of sadhu sangha in that birth. And Gurudev was telling that Krishna will arrange for you to get the highest sadhu sangha, even on the level of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur, like this. This is coming. It's coming for us. And I see amongst our youth, they've also had such a birth in this life. It depends. There's also some scars from previous life and so forth. But everyone is going in that direction. So our guidebook is going to be how to live our lives, internally, externally, all of that. That it always becomes favorable, and more favorable. See? So at certain points in our life, like especially when we're in the Grihastha ashram, we have so many other responsibilities. We can say, well, even distraction, right? You know, I've spoken to so many mothers who have said, oh, I can't find time to chant. From the time I wake up, and then my child, and then I have to do this and that and this and that, you know? Like the mother's work is never finished, right? But still, internally, we can actually practice. Because Mahaprabhu told to Raghunath Das Goswami, you go home and internally, like a woman who has a paramour, she's always secretly thinking, but she doesn't let anybody know. And she does very diligently all of her household chores so that nobody will discover. That is the mood of the gopis. That's the mood of the gopis. And even we are not on that level, but Krishna should be our only beloved. Srila Gurudev gave Krishna to each and every person that he gave initiation to. And he said, now I am giving you your relationship with Krishna. You should think Krishna is my only beloved. That will develop in our life in different ways. And Krishna will also arrange so many circumstances of our life to bring it about. Many circumstances will be very trying circumstances, very great tests for us. But we have to pass them. We have to be one-pointed. And if we have that mood toward Guru, toward our Sri Gurudev, if we have that one-pointed mood, To the extent that we feel that Gurudev is my very life breath. He is my very Atma. I remember Shamarani used to say this because she heard it from Gurudev, but she used to use it a lot in her lectures, that when you see Gurudev coming into the room, your relationship should be such that here is my very Atma, here is my very self. That close. Because Gurudev, everyone likes to hear this quote that Gurudev, and they've printed it so many places, I am closer to you. Very sweet, very poetic, all of this. But we have to actualize that in our life. It will only come from absolute surrender and Vishrambhena Gurur Seva. Vishramba Seva. What does Vishramba mean? It means so much loving affection. More than one feels for one's own intimate family members. Vishramba Bhav. And then, how many times did we hear Gurudev also say that the faith in Guru Nishta is what?
The backbone of bhakti.
These are the moods and the flavors of this Sangha. You see? We have our uniqueness, even amongst all the other. You see? So, anyway, our time has gone. Okay. Oh, special Ekadasi. That's right. There's nothing really else to do except for this. Yeah.
I have a question because you talked about the morning walk, and I wasn't sure if you got to the point that why you were thinking of that.
Oh, well, it was just that that's the first time that I heard it explained in that way, because I wasn't so familiar at that point with the Manasiksha.
What did you hear explained?
He was telling how the desire for Pratishta, is impossible for the devotee. And then, like I said, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj had also implanted that in me by saying that it is the greatest enemy, and it is a very formidable enemy. You see, so the two books, Upadeshamrita and Manasiksha, Gurudev would very often say that these two books are the entire process, given in 11 verses in each book.
It was the first of Gurudev's books that I ever read was Manasiksha.
Yeah. I actually have been developing Jai Radhe Govinda Ji Ki Jai. I've been developing a desire to go through the Manasiksha.
He gave it to me personally.
Yes. He gave it to you. Yeah. Actually, Gurudev said there are 4 books. These 2, and there's 2 others. You know what they are? No? Sikshastakam and Bhajan Rahasya. Yes. Jaiva Dharma is like the ultimate book. Yeah, the encyclopedia book of all Tattva Siddhanta.
The Chatur books. The Chatur sloks and the Chatur books.
Yeah, because everything is very concentrated and they're short. Because look at what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave. It's the last chapter of the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's called Sikshastakam. This is the final chapter of Antya-lila. The end of the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yes, because you have not read. Yes. So, Mahaprabhu is in Gambhira. And he is with Swarup Damodar, Rai Ramananda. And weeping and holding on to their necks. And this is daily affair, and just extreme separation moods of Srimati Radhika. And then from his lotus mouth emanated Sikshastakam, verse by verse. Yes? And then he gave some little explanation, right? But this was spontaneously. That's why this is the ultimate poetry from the mouth of Mahaprabhu. But we could not know what is contained within that unless we would read the commentaries of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and then expanding from that, Bhajan Rahasya, because that's a quite sizable book. Many, many, many shlokas being quoted by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he's explaining what is there in these 8 verses?
Mahamantra.
Yes, tell, how? How is the Mahamantra there?
According to Ashtakaliya Lila.
Okay. How is the Mahamantra?
So
Those 16 words, 32 syllables.
So the 16 words, that each pair, Hare Krishna, like each pair goes according to the first verse, second verse, they're allotted. And each one is according to a specific time of day, starting from Brahma Muhurta. And also the levels of bhakti, starting from Shraddha to Bhav.
You understand that? Can you understand that? Have you read Bhajan Rahasya at all? No. So,
And also what the...
there are 32 syllables in the Mahamantra. So, and there are 16 names, and there are 8 pairs of names. What's the first pair?
Hare Krishna.
Next?
Hare Krishna.
Next?
Krishna Krishna.
Next?
Hare
And the rest?
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Yeah, today they were singing a melody I hadn't heard before. I was like, they're saying Hare Krishna, Hare. And then there's some other thing. I was trying to figure it out. I couldn't get it. I couldn't get that melody. I was trying to say, how are they saying? you know which one I'm talking about. It was one of the last ones that was sung by Madhamangal. Yeah. So here's the thing. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he has given the Sikshastakam, and now I'm remembering, we were in the Gambhira with Gurudev during the Jagannath Puri Parikrama, and that's what he spoke on there, sitting on this little ledge outside of the room of Mahaprabhu's where his Gambhira is, and he told that. That's what he spoke on. Short.
Was that 2001?
Either that or 2004. I don't remember. Those 2 times. Yeah. So, and they've also made a chart. I mean, Tridandi Maharaj likes to make charts. It makes things you can visualize and see, what is this? All these conceptions, you know. So he also made a chart for the Madhuri Kadambini, the Bhakti Lata, right? And then he made a chart that was circular, like a target. And in the middle is, what's there in that chart again, in the very middle? Anyway, so what it's showing, because there's different circles, 1 circle, 2 circle, I think there's like 5 circles. And it's showing there that the pairs of names, 8 pairs of names, are representing, as she was telling, the 8 time periods of Krishna's eternal Nitya Leela, pastimes, Ashtakal, 8 different time periods of the day. This is Krishna's eternal Leela. And those who are highly advanced and absorbed in the stage of Bhav, they are doing bhajan in those 8 time periods of the day, 24 hours a day, internally. And externally, like the Goswamis. Internal and external. So, but these 8 pairs of names are indicating those 8 time periods in a cycle. But not only that, also, these 8 pairs of names are describing the stages, 8 different stages, from Shraddha to praying. And then Gurudev explained something that I hadn't known before about these 8 verses of the Sikshastakam. The first verse is a little different from the next 7 verses. Do you know how it's different? How?
It tells what is the reason you should do the other 7 verses. Something like that, right?
Something like that. The first shloka is describing the 7 effects
Yes, that's right.
that will be attained in these progressive stages. Yes. So, and sometimes Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I saw in one of his essays, he was referring to 7-tongued Samkirtan. 7-tongued, the 7 flames.
I always wondered about that.
Yeah, and you know, what I envisioned, because I was born in Christianity and, you know, the whole biblical stories of Jesus, and after Jesus, you know, supposedly died on the cross, but we have other information that he lived in India after that and so forth. But there was the ascension, and then there was a gathering of his 12 disciples. Yes, like there's a name for that. And in that gathering, then Jesus again appeared, right? He appeared. And there was one disciple named Thomas. That's where we get the word in English, doubting Thomas. Don't be a doubting Thomas, right? But he was doubting that it's actually Jesus who came. Then he said, come. And where the spear pierced, he touched that area and understood, yeah, he's actually here. But anyway, in their gathering together, they were alone, and they were intensively praying in their moods, and according to the Bible's description, flames came and went on their head. You know, the modern day evangelistic kind of preachers, they like that. And then there was also they call it speaking in tongues, you know, like that. And they sometimes imitate that, you know. But the thing is that depiction in the Bible of flames coming down. And then when I read about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explaining the 7-tongued Samkirtan of the holy names. So, some little similarity there. And in this way, the second shloka of the Sikshastakam, what is that describing? The stage of bhajan in Shraddha, Bhajana Kriya, and Sadhu Sangha. Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Shraddha. Right? I think Anartha Nivritti is also put in there. So, the first shloka of Sikshastakam, which is describing the 7 effects. What's the first effect? Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Yes. Cleansing the dust from the mirror of the heart. This is the main principle in preaching Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada so much emphasized. Because when you chant, the dust is being cleansed, right? And according to your association and so forth, there will be more and more powerful cleansing of that dust. You see? But that is anartana vritti. But anartana vritti will not happen unless Shraddha is there, and sadhu sangha, and bhajana kriya, you see. So the first effect, which most devotees are in that stage, right? Because what is the next effect? Cheto darpana marjanam? Vagni nirvapanam. What does that mean? Yeah, extinguishing. Bhava mahadavagni. The great conflagration, the word is used, of an all-devouring forest fire of this material existence. It will be extinguished. And what is that indicating? That now Nishta. Yes. Now Nishta has come. Graduating through anartana vritti. And then one will experience. This will be the effect that one will experience. Stitam sattve prasidati. Like in those 5 shlokas. Cheta etayar anavidham. Stitam sattve prasidati. All of these sufferings and so forth, they will become quite negligible for a devotee in that stage. Yes, so then that is indicated by the 3rd shloka. The 3rd shloka of Sikshastakam is showing when one comes into the stage of Madhyam Adhikar. And one has Nishta. That's the beginning of Madhyam. So what's the shloka? Yes. Tell. Such a short, sweet, easy shloka to say, but very difficult to do that, to apply it, to live it in a natural way, not a forced way. Actually realizing how low I am. Just today, this morning, I was reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I decided to read the chapter of Rupa Goswami's coming to Mahaprabhu. So wonderful. I was reading all the way up through how Sanatana Goswami was imprisoned, and then Rupa Goswami came with his brother Anupam. And they finally met. They came to the place where Mahaprabhu was staying in Prayag. And they saw Mahaprabhu singing and dancing with lakhs of people, lakhs, plural, all around him. And all those people, they were just weeping, falling on the ground, rolling on the ground, and actually laughing. This is their condition. And that's when, from a distance, Srila Rupa Goswami and Anupam, they offered 3 different shlokas, prayers. And the first one was, Namo Mahabhatanaya. He composed that on the spot. Krishna Prema Pradayate. Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gauda Trishenam. So the story continues. They met with Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu put his feet on their heads and gave them blessings. You see? But there was also another personality who was very famous, Vaishnava personality. We were mentioning his name the other day, Ballabha Acharya. He was known as Ballabha Bhatta Acharya. And he came to see Mahaprabhu, right? Now he was an extremely exalted Vaishnava scholar and devotee. But Mahaprabhu noticed that he had a certain temperament, because a lot of the Brahminical exalted Brahmins, they would have, a sense of superiority. So Mahaprabhu was a little bit testing him. And when Rupa and Anupam were coming, they kept at a distance. And Mahaprabhu was telling Balabhavata that, oh, this is Rupa and Anupam. And they stayed at a distance. And when Vallabhacharya tried to approach them, they went farther away. Don't touch us, don't touch us. We are untouchables. We are so low and contaminated. Please, don't touch us. He was very impressed by that. Mahaprabhu was very appreciative of their moods, you see. Even though they're actually born in a very exalted Brahmin family and community, topmost. But they were rejected by the Brahmin community because of their association with the Muslims. Yes. And that's why they wrote to Mahaprabhu, save us. They wrote a letter to Mahaprabhu. They wanted Mahaprabhu to come and rescue them, which he did. So, Vallabhacharya, he saw their behavior, but he was getting it. He was understanding. And then Mahaprabhu quoted a couple of shlokas, telling that even if a person is born in the family of dog eaters, these are from Shastra, these shlokas, if he is completely engaged 24 hours a day in chanting the holy names and absorbed in doing bhajan to Krishna, then he is greater than a person born in a Brahmin family who knows all the Shastras, but yet he's not my devotee. That was the distinction. And that's the distinction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement over all other movements. That Mahaprabhu accepted anyone if they would embrace the process of Nam Bhajan, Samkirtan. That's why Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Samkirtanam. Supreme victory, Vijayate, to the holy names, to the process of Shri Krishna Samkirtan. It will be all powerful, all victorious, all auspicious for the jivas. And it will overcome any disqualifications. It will overcome all. And to exemplify that, Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu performed the famous pastime so that everyone could see with their own eyes and know this for all future generations, that Mahaprabhu could take anyone as long as they would agree to not sin anymore, right? It's not that, oh, now I'm giving you Krishna Prem, now you can go back to your sinful life. That's the Christian fault of Christianity nowadays, unfortunately. That they think they can sin, and then they just confess their sins, and then they're forgiven. So sinning, confessing, the bathing of an elephant. Goes into the water, bathes, then comes back out on the bank and throws dust on itself. So Mahaprabhu, he told this to them, that you should now give up all these activities. And he gave them, he actually gave them Krishna Prem. Okay, I'm getting there. He gave them Krishna Prem. And they became great devotees to the extent that Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj placed them on the entrance to Devananda Gaudiya Mat, on each side. Jagai Madhai. Yes. And similar to Jai Vijay. Because actually they're a reappearance of Jai Vijay in Gaur Lila, you see. So, but these two personalities, actually they were born in Brahmin families also, but they had become the most degraded, sinful debauch. So Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, they can save anyone, but they will have to now change. And if someone doesn't change, then they can't get the full mercy. But anyway, whatever they do, that's the good thing about pure bhakti, is that neha vikramanashosti prativayam navidyate swalpam api asya dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat. And there are so many Shastric stories of how even just a little bit of bhakti, and all those stories we're reading on the Gita Jayanti Day, you know, by reading, you know, half of a shloka even from the Bhagavad Gita, they were liberated. They went to Vaikuntha. These are all true. So, anyway, our time has run out, but the Sikshastakam should be properly studied by reading also the Bhajan Rahasya fully. That's a handbook for our bhajan, for our whole life. It's not a book you read and then, okay, I read that. No, this is a book. All these books are for continual reading and remembering, and also taking your own pulse, you know. Like Gurudev would say, putting your hand on your heart and checking, am I following properly? Am I not following properly? Like that. So we're so fortunate that we have these literatures from our acharyas, and not only that, but we're here all together. Very special jivas have come and are living here in New Braj, and outwardly they appear to be like ordinary human beings, but Srila Sridhar Maharaj told, he said, you should see that all the devotees who are in ISKCON, at that time he was speaking to the ISKCON leaders, he said, you should see them like demigods. All very rare jivas. So I'm very happy to have the association of all of you, and I consider this a great boon in my life, and even a degraded soul who gets the association of very sincere devotees, oh, they can benefit. So that's my condition. So I'm very happy that the devotees have come, even just for a few days. Our collection of very special devotees and the devotees that are already here, living here. Quite an amazing group. Quite an amazing group. And it would be nice if the kirtan could go on indefinitely, every day, after lunch. Gaur Premanande, Jai Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Jai, Shri Upadeshamrita ki Jai, Shri Rupa Goswami Pada ki Jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha.